Hello everyone. In this video, we will go through the load balancing and we're going to look into how we can do the balancing. The concept behind load balancing is if you have multiple machine or if you got the application which is running, we need to run it on a multiple machines. So instead of using or putting traffic into one machine or one web server, we can distribute within the multiple servers. So if you have more than one web server running, to utilize both the web servers, you can do a load balance, and load balancer will distribute the traffic between those two server uh, evenly. So let's start by creating a resource group. So I'm just gonna call this resource group as we always follow such resource group East US. If you're following my videos, I usually use the name of the resource first and then the region. So in this way, it's easy to identify my spelling, yeah, East US, and let's create. Okay, perfect. So our resource group has been created. Now let's start by creating a virtual network. So we usually create resources from the base. So we need a virtual network. So let's create a virtual network. I'm gonna call this virtual network VNet East US, and it's in East US region. Okay, IP addressing subnet, we're gonna keep it default. Okay, let's create. Okay, our resource group, our virtual network has been created in the resource group. Now let's create our network security group. The reason why we are creating a network security group because we don't have to block any traffic. So what I will try to do is to allow all the traffic. So we're gonna call it the network security group East US, and let's create one. Just muted while it's building up. So let's wait. Okay, that's been deployed. Now in this network security group, let's create an inbound rule. That rule will allow all the traffic on all the port. It's not a good practice, but since allow all, we are just doing a demo. So just gonna create one. Okay, that's been getting created now, creating security rules. Okay, that's done, created. Now let's go to subnet in here and associate this rule to our virtual network, and under the virtual network to our subnet, which was default because we haven't made any change. So we'll wait for this one to get created. Okay, that's done. Okay, now next step we need to do is to create a availability set. I will show you why we need availability set, but let's create one for now. I will explain you when we go for the virtual machine create or load balancer why we need the availability set. Okay, so we're gonna call it availability AV set. East US, and I will leave the settings default East US, and let's create. It's very straightforward to create a availability set. Why we need availability set? So we can have a redundancy. So that's the reason. Just gonna wait for this one to get deployed. Okay, so availability set is done. Okay, now let's launch our VMs in this availability set. So I'm gonna create the Linux machines. So we select our resource group, and I'm gonna call this machine VM1 East US, and this is fine. Okay, availability options. So here we need to select availability set, and you remember we call it AV set East US. Up till here, you can't understand why we are using it, but when we do the load balancing stuff, I will explain. Okay, and we will use instead of SSH, we will use password desktop, and then okay, and then we will say no here because we have associated the network security group with our subnet. They will allow all the traffic, so you don't have to do it in here. So that's done. And review, I just want to double check I should have used the networking. Okay, I'm not gonna create it yet. So yep, this is network security net virtual network default subnet, and our IP address is there. That's all good. On the management, I'm just gonna disable this, and let's create. Availability set has been selected, Ubuntu password, and that's all good. So just gonna wait for the validation to go through. That's been getting deployed now. Sorry, I just muted while it's getting deployed. While it's getting deployed, let me prepare my putty session because we're gonna need to connect it. I usually go, so what you do, you can install putty from web. It's very straightforward. Next installation, and in okay, that's deployed. We'll change to 14, and then let's quickly change the color because we're going to be using two sessions. I just want to, let's use green for here. Okay, and let's go to our resource, copy the public IP address. If you need to look into more regarding building up a VM, you can see my previous video where I have explained how to create a virtual machine. That's why I'm just going very straightforward in these ones. So let's open the session. Yep, and we're gonna put the password which we have enter. Okay, perfect. So we are in our first VM, which is sitting in the availability set. We haven't done the load balancing yet. So let's install Apache server on this one. And for that, let me quickly check one of the settings. Sorry, just bear with me. So we're gonna install Apache server on this one, and then we're gonna try to connect to it, and this way we can able to test it. So just gonna get the settings there. Yep. Okay, now let's do sudo -i, sorry, I, and then install our Apache server apt-get update. And install Apache G2-yes. So why we use flag yes? Because we don't have to enter the yes, because it will stay and ask for a permission. So to avoid that, we just put yes and just wait for it to get installed. It should be up and running. Yep, it's up and running now. So if we use this public IP address, you can say it says Apache Ubuntu default page. Okay, from default page, I'm just gonna change it to something different. I'm probably gonna add number 2 there. So it's gonna be easy for us to differentiate when we're gonna launch that second one. Okay, just gonna close these ones down. You're not using them anymore. Even this one, you're not using this anymore. Okay, now let's go back to our session. Yeah, this session, that's where we were. So let's go to cd wall blue HTML. Okay, so I just need to use other way around. Okay, now if we do vim, okay, let me show you. So what we need to do, we need to change this index file. If I do vim index HTML, and if you go to line 198, where it will show, yeah, Apache Ubuntu default page, I'm gonna call it, oops. So, and if I do insert I space number 2, and then if I do escape colon write and quit, and that's it. And if I do a refresh on this page, you will see it says number 2. Okay, now let's launch our second VM. Let's go to virtual machine, the same subnet set. We will explain, I will explain it when we're gonna show you the load balancer, why we are using two VM with two web server install, Apache server install. Availability set we're gonna choose. We know our availability set. Okay, it's not coming up. That's very interesting because the resource group we have choose is not the right one. So we need to make sure we choose the right resource group, availability set, and then here we go. We can see underneath these ones. And as we said, we're gonna use password option. So that's up. Let's enter the password. I use one password because we're just doing the test. So you can choose one password and keep using that. To me, all these settings looks all right. VM2, VM1, and then We need to make sure in the networking session, yep, that's selected, that is fine. In management, just get rid of disable this. Let's create this. Okay, while it's getting created, let me prepare putty so we can differentiate from the other one. So I'm gonna go first appearances, change font to 14, and then let's change this color schema. The front ground foreground one. If you click modify, it will give you option. You can choose customize one as well, but I will choose the one which is already there, and I will wait for the IP address to be available, which should be there soon. So as you can see, we got our Apache server running on our VM1. You can see it says VM1 East US, and this is the page. It was a default page. We changed it to number 2, and we changed the other one to number 1. And once these VMs are up and running, then we're gonna configure the load balancer. So once we're gonna configure the load balancer, I will go through the steps that how the traffic. So it's not actually the background how the traffic is being distributed, but the method how the traffic is being distributed. Because what's going to happen when you configure a load balancer, it will give you a IP address, a public IP address. Using that public IP address, you can access one of these machines, or you can use any of these ones at the same time. So let's wait for this one to finish up. That's done. Let's grab the IP address of this and desktop at the rate click yes, and let's put the password. I think I missed a key and I was, oh no, that's fine. I thought I missed a key. So we can do clear, and first thing first, let's upgrade this to sudo and install Apache server app get update the modules, and apt get install Apache 2 and flag yes. Okay, it's installing the Apache. Let me put these one side by side. Okay, that's done. So sorry, need to be in this one. So now let's go to cd var. Still making the same mistake as var and www, and then it's html, and then in this we got an index page which we're gonna open with our Vim browser, and we need to go to, I'm pretty sure it's line 198, and let's see, 198, yep. No, which line was it? Sorry, 198, yeah, that's the one. So we call the other one number 1, and let's call this one, I need to press I for insert number 1. The other one was number 2, and then once it's done, skip colon write and quit. So that's done, and we already had copied the IP address for this one. So let's see, yep, page 1, page 2, page 1, page 2. IP address this and IP address this, okay? So they are running now. Is the real topic which we want to cover is load balancer. So let's search for load balancer. You can search for load balancing. I've opened it before, so that's why it's just showing on my list over there. So create a load balancer. You can name your load balancer anything. So I'm gonna call it load balancer hyphen East US. East US. Okay, we're gonna use basic here and internal here, and we're not gonna use internal. We're using public, and we're gonna use basic. And just want to show you, yep, all the options. Create new, and then if you use standard, if you use basic, you have to deploy in a availability set. Okay, and now public IP address, you can call it public hyphen IP hyphen load balancer hyphen East US, and that's pretty much it. And there is nothing else we need to do in here for now. Let's create. We will wait for it to get deployed. Back. So that's was quick, didn't took too long. Okay, now if you look, so load balancer is created. Now we need to configure the load balancer. So we already created the front IP configuration, which is we call it public IP. Now backend pool. So we need to create a backend pool. So when it says backend pool, you can see there is a availability set symbol here. So that is obvious. So we need to give a backend pool of machines, which a load balancer will be connected to. So what I'm gonna call it back pool back and hyphen pool hyphen East US. We can call it availability load balancer as well, just to differentiate with other stuff. So this is our virtual network associated to. So what is associated to the back end pool? Virtual machines. And then if you click on here, we're going to use IP version 4. If you click here, you can see the machines which were available. So just click on both the machines. If you have multiple, you can choose multiple and then click add. There are two more configuration which we need to do, and after that, I think our load balancer will be configured and we will do a test. Might gonna take few minutes, so let's put on a mute for a minute. Okay, I'm back. So that's done, and we saw front end IP was configured, backend pool is configured now, and now let's create health probes. Health probes is called. The reason to have this health probe is that what if one of the machine which is connected to backend pool does not respond, or is like got some issues, is not coming up. So that's where the health probes comes into action. So I'm gonna call it health probe hyphen load balancer hyphen East US. And what type of protocol we need to check? TCP, since it's a web server, port 80 interval after every 5 seconds. If it doesn't come up, so that's where that's what it means. After every 5 seconds, it will do 2 checks. If after 5 seconds, first 5 seconds it doesn't come up, it will give the machine another chance. And on the second chance, if it doesn't come up, so it will take that machine off from its uh, pool, and then we will have only one machine. So let's add this one. I hope that makes sense to you guys. So let's add this one in. So deployment is in process. Okay, that's configured. Perfect. Now the last thing we need to do is to load balance rule. So in this one, we will combine all these three settings. So if I could do add, okay, we're gonna call it load balance hyphen rule hyphen east US. Let me call it rule hyphen load balance hyphen east US. IPv6 front end address, we have configured it. Protocol, we know TCP. Port, since the web server, we will use 80. Backend port is on a web server, we'll use 80 again. Backend pool, which we have created earlier, so that's we need to create. Help probe, we have created earlier, we will select that one. Okay, session persistence, we're gonna say none. The reason why we are saying none, if we keep it for a time, then what's gonna happen? We can't able to test our server load balancer properly because we need to spend more time. So we will leave it none, and let's add this one. Okay, perfect. So that's all done. Now let's go back to our resource. So we need to go back to our deployed resource. Yeah. So if I click on the front end IP configuration, this is the IP address which we are after. So if we copy this IP address, so this is the front end IP address for our load balancer. Okay, just gonna wait for this one to go. Oh yeah, it will keep coming up. Okay, let me do duplicate of this one. And if I type this IP address here, which is our load balancer front end IP address, you can see it's showing up page number 1 now. We'll close the rest of the 2 pages, and if I do refresh, just try it. This is IP address. Try to do it after 10 seconds. Let me duplicate it and refresh this. Let me refresh this. No, okay, we will give it another few seconds. So it's still hitting on our VM2, which we call it default page 1. So let's wait for some time. So what the balancer is actually trying to do here is trying to load balance the traffic between these two machines. Yep, here we go. You can see number 2 is here and number 1 is here. Now 2 is again. So it's just distributing the traffic between these two machines. Okay, that's pretty much cover everything for our session. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in another video. Thanks for now. Take care. Bye.